The galaxy belonged to the Zephyrians, or so they believed, for 3,000 years. Their purple-skinned empire had stretched across 47 star systems, ruling over dozens of conquered species, with iron discipline and superior technology. Their capital world of Zephys Prime gleamed like a jewel in space, its crystal towers reaching toward the stars in silent testimony to their dominance. Supreme Archon Veltar stood before the great viewing window of the High Council chamber, watching the endless stream of tribute ships arriving from the outer worlds. Each vessel carried the wealth of entire planets, rare metals, exotic foods, technological components, and most valuable of all, new slaves to work in the Empire's vast industrial complexes. The sight filled him with deep satisfaction. This was the natural order of things. The universe recognizes strength, he had often told his subordinates. We are strong, therefore we rule. It is simple logic. Behind him, the council members went about their daily business of managing the Empire. Reports flowed in from sector governors. Trade disputes were settled with swift judgment, and military commanders requested resources for their ongoing campaigns. The Zephyrian machine of conquest rolled forward as it had for millennia, efficient and unstoppable. Commander Kexhari approached the throne with measured steps, her military uniform pristine and her bearing perfect. She had served the Empire faithfully for 20 years, putting down rebellions and conquering minor worlds. Today she carried routine scout reports from the Outer Rim territories. Supreme Archon, she said, offering the traditional salute. The weekly sector reports. Veltar barely glanced at her as she began reading. Most of the reports were predictable. Tribute collection proceeding on schedule, local populations remaining docile, military patrols maintaining order. The Empire ran itself these days, so complete was their control. And from Sector 7 Alpha, Kexhari continued, Scout Captain Mexavai reports contact with a new species in an isolated system. Primitive technology, single-planet civilization. They call themselves humans and their world Earth. This caught Veltar's attention. New species were always interesting, if only to determine their usefulness to the Empire. Assessment? Kexhari consulted her datapad. Category 7 primitive, chemical rocket propulsion, basic nuclear technology, no FTL capability, population approximately 8 billion. Mexavai estimates they are perhaps 2 centuries away from achieving interstellar flight on their own. Troublesome? Veltar asked automatically. Some primitive species could be surprisingly stubborn. Unlikely, Supreme Archon. Standard conquest protocols should suffice. They possess no weapons capable of threatening our shields, and their military forces appear fragmented into competing nation-states. The captain recommends waiting until our next scheduled expansion wave. Veltar considered this. The Empire's expansion had slowed in recent decades, mainly because they had conquered all the worthwhile civilizations in their region of space. These humans might provide useful genetic diversity for their slave populations, and their world could serve as a supply depot for future expansion into that sector. No, he decided, we will not wait. A primitive species allowed to develop freely might discover dangerous technologies or inspire unwanted ideas in our subject populations. Better to collect them now while they are helpless. Shall I assign a full conquest fleet, Supreme Archon? Veltar waved dismissively. For primitives, 1 dreadnought should suffice. Consider it a training exercise for junior officers. Who is next in rotation for field command? Kexhari checked her records. Commander Nick Solon, Supreme Archon. He has been requesting active duty assignment to demonstrate his readiness for promotion. Perfect. Tell him to take the celestial dominance and collect these humans. Standard procedure. Demand surrender. Demonstrate superior force if they resist. Then begin processing them for integration into our labor force. The operation should require no more than a few hours. As Kexhari departed to deliver the orders, Veltar returned his attention to the tribute ships. The humans would soon join that endless stream of wealth flowing toward Zephys Prime. Another species would learn their proper place in the galactic order. On the other side of the galaxy, Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the command center of Luna Base, studying the deep space monitoring reports with growing concern. Humanity had been watching the stars for decades, ever since the development of quantum sensors capable of detecting faster than light travel. They had observed ships moving between distant star systems, ships that clearly belonged to an advanced civilization. The question had never been whether humanity would encounter aliens. The question was whether those aliens would be friendly. "Admiral," called Lieutenant Torres from the sensor station. "We're getting consistent readings on a large vessel approaching the outer system. Vectors suggest it's heading directly for Earth." Chen moved to the display screen, her experienced eyes taking in the data. The approaching ship was massive, easily 10 times larger than humanity's largest vessels. Its energy signature was unlike anything in their databases, and it was moving faster than human technology could achieve. "Time to intercept orbit?" she asked. "Approximately 18 hours at current velocity, ma'am." Chen nodded grimly. 18 hours to prepare for humanity's first contact with alien intelligence. She had hoped for more time, but the Earth Defense Force had been preparing for this moment for 50 years. "Signal the Defiance," she ordered. "Tell Captain Martinez to intercept and establish communication. Full stealth approach until we determine their intentions." The UES Defiance was humanity's first true warship. Built in the asteroid belt shipyards using technologies that had been developed in secret for decades, while most of humanity remained unaware of the alien presence in the galaxy, a select group of scientists, military officers, and government officials had been working tirelessly to prepare for this day. Unlike the peaceful exploration vessels that most humans imagined for first contact, the Defiance was designed for war. Its hull was lined with armor plating that could withstand nuclear explosions. Its weapon systems included railguns capable of accelerating projectiles to significant fractions of light speed. Most importantly, it carried humanity's greatest secret. They had solved the problem of faster-than-light travel, not through exotic energy manipulation, but through brute force engineering and artificial intelligence. Captain Rodriguez received his orders with calm professionalism. His crew had trained for years for this moment, running countless simulations against hypothetical alien vessels. They knew their ship better than their own homes, and they knew their mission: protect Earth at all costs. As the Defiance accelerated toward the outer system, its sensors began collecting detailed information about the approaching alien vessel. The data was troubling. The ship's design suggested a military purpose, and its course left no doubt about its destination. "Captain," reported the science officer, "I'm detecting energy signatures consistent with advanced weapons systems. Multiple plasma cannon arrays, shield generators, and what appears to be a faster-than-light communication array." Rodriguez studied the readings. The alien ship was clearly superior to anything humanity could build using conventional technology. But humanity had learned long ago that conventional approaches were not always the best ones. "Maintain stealth approach," he ordered, "and charge the railgun batteries. If they want to fight, we'll give them one they won't expect." Behind them, Earth continued its slow rotation, its 8 billion inhabitants unaware that their fate now hung in the balance between two species who had never met, but might soon be enemies. Commander Nixolan felt pleased with himself as the celestial dominance dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the human solar system. His first independent command, and it would be an easy victory to add to his service record. The primitive humans would surrender quickly once they saw the superiority of Zephyrian technology. The bridge crew went about their duties with practiced efficiency. Sensors mapped the system. Communications officers prepared the standard conquest broadcast, and weapons officers powered up the plasma cannon arrays. Everything proceeded according to regulations that had been refined through thousands of successful conquests. "Commander," reported the sensor officer, "the system contains 8 planets with the inhabited world third from their star. Primitive space installations detected around several worlds, but nothing that poses any threat to our vessel." Nixolan nodded. The report matched the scout data perfectly. These humans had barely managed to spread across their own solar system, using chemical rockets that would have been laughable even to the earliest Zephyrian space explorers. "Any response to our arrival?" he asked. "Negative, Commander. If they have detected us, they show no signs of concern." This was typical. Primitive species often failed to understand the significance of a Zephyrian dreadnought appearing in their space. They would learn quickly enough. "Open a communication channel," Nixolan ordered. "All frequencies. Ensure they can receive our message clearly." The communications officer worked for several minutes, establishing contact with what appeared to be the humans' primary communication networks. When ready, she signaled to the commander. Nixolan stood and activated the recording system. His image would be broadcast to every human receiver capable of picking up the signal, ensuring that their leaders understood the situation clearly. Attention. Inhabitants of the world you call Earth, he began, using the formal conquest protocol that had served the Empire for centuries. I am Commander Nixolon of the Zephyrian Empire. Your species has been selected for integration into our galactic civilization. He paused to let the translator systems process his words into the various human languages their computers had identified. You will immediately cease all military activities and prepare to receive our representatives. Your weapons will be surrendered. Your governments will be dissolved, and your population will be processed for assignment to appropriate labor categories within our empire. Compliance will result in the preservation of your species and your eventual elevation to useful status within our society. Another pause. This was the moment when most species began broadcasting desperate pleas for mercy or attempting futile negotiations. The humans remained silent. Failure to comply will result in the demonstration of superior force and the subsequent pacification of your world. You have 1 hour to respond with your unconditional surrender. Nixolon closed the channel and returned to his command chair, satisfied with his delivery. The speech had been perfect, striking just the right balance between generous offer and implicit threat. Now they would wait for the inevitable human surrender. 47 minutes later, a response came. Zephyrian vessel, this is Captain Rodriguez of the United Earthship Defiance. Your demands are rejected. You will immediately withdraw from Terran space and return to wherever you came from. This is your only warning. The bridge fell silent. In 3,000 years of Zephyrian expansion, no species had ever rejected the initial surrender demand. Nixolon felt a moment of confusion before anger replaced it. Where did that transmission come from? He demanded. The sensor officer worked frantically at his console. Unknown, Commander. We detect no vessels in our vicinity. The signal appears to have originated from empty space. Impossible. Scan again. While his crew searched for the source of the transmission, Nixolon considered his options. Clearly, these humans were more arrogant than most primitives. A demonstration of power would correct their attitude quickly enough. Plot a firing solution for their largest space installation, he ordered. Minimum power setting. We want to damage, not destroy. Target acquired, Commander. Luna base, orbiting their primary world satellite. Fire. The plasma cannon discharged with its characteristic green flash, sending a bolt of superheated energy toward the human installation. The blast was precisely calculated to disable their main communications array, while leaving the rest of the base intact. It should provide an excellent demonstration of Zephyrian firepower without causing excessive casualties. The humans would now understand that resistance was futile. Instead of the expected surrender message, something else happened. The celestial dominance shuddered as something struck its forward shields. Warning lights flashed across the bridge as the shield generator struggled to absorb an impact that should not have been possible. Report, Nixolon shouted. Unknown projectile impact, Commander. Shields holding but showing significant drain. Projectile appears to have been a solid mass traveling at approximately 12% of light speed. Before anyone could respond to this impossible statement, the ship shuddered again. This time the impact was stronger, and several console displays flickered. Second impact confirmed, the tactical officer reported with growing alarm. Shield integrity down to 60%. Where are these attacks coming from? Nixolon demanded. Unknown, Commander. Our sensors detect no enemy vessels, no energy signatures consistent with weapons fire. The projectiles appear to be simple metal slugs, but traveling at velocities that should be impossible for primitive technology. A third impact shook the ship violently. Emergency lighting activated as the main power grid fluctuated. Shields down to 30%, reported the engineering officer. Commander, whatever they're firing at us, our shields weren't designed to stop it. Nixolon felt the first stirrings of real concern. Zephyrian energy shields could stop any known weapon in the galaxy. They absorbed plasma blasts, deflected particle beams, and dispersed laser fire with perfect efficiency. But these human projectiles seemed to pass through the shields as if they weren't there. Emergency power to shields, he ordered. All available energy from non-essential systems. The fourth impact nearly knocked everyone on the bridge off their feet. Sparks flew from damaged consoles as the ship's main power grid overloaded. In the distance, Nixolon could hear the sound of bulkheads buckling under stress. Shields failing, the tactical officer announced. Impact directly on the main hull. Breach in sections 7 through 12. Emergency force fields holding, but we're losing atmosphere. Return fire, Nixolin shouted. All weapons maximum spread pattern. The celestial dominance unleashed its full arsenal into the surrounding space, plasma cannons firing in every direction in desperate attempt to hit whatever was attacking them. The energy blasts lit up the darkness between the planets like a deadly fireworks display. The response was immediate and devastating. Not one, but dozens of projectiles slammed into the Zephyrian ship from multiple directions. The remaining shields collapsed entirely, and the ship's hull began to crack under the relentless kinetic bombardment. "Commander," the communications officer called out over the chaos. "Incoming transmission from the humans." On screen, a human face appeared on the main display. The being was smaller than a Zephyrian, with pale skin and dark hair, but its eyes held an intelligence that Nixolin suddenly found deeply unsettling. "Zephyrian vessel," the human said calmly. "You have 30 seconds to power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Your ship is disabled and your shields are down. Surrender now and your crew will be treated according to our rules of war." Nixolin stared at the screen in disbelief. How had this happened? His mighty dreadnought, armed with weapons that could crack planets, had been defeated by a species that couldn't even build proper spacecraft. "Sir," whispered his tactical officer, "our weapons are offline, our shields are gone, and we have multiple hull breaches. The humans are right. We're defenseless." For the first time in his military career, Commander Nixolin faced a choice that no Zephyrian officer had ever needed to make. He could order his crew to fight to the death with small arms against an enemy that had already proven it could destroy them at will, or he could surrender to primitives. "Open a channel," he said quietly. "This is Commander Nixolin. We surrender." As human ships suddenly appeared around his crippled vessel, somehow materializing from what had seemed like empty space, Nixolin realized that everything the Zephyrian Empire believed about primitive species was wrong. These humans weren't primitive at all. They were something far more dangerous. They were smart. News of the Celestial Dominance's defeat reached Zephys Prime within hours, carried by the ship's automated emergency beacon. Supreme Archon Veltar stared at the message display, reading the impossible words over and over again. A single primitive species had not only refused surrender, but had actually defeated a Zephyrian dreadnought. "This is clearly some kind of mistake," declared Admiral Kexhari, though her voice lacked conviction. "Commander Nixolin must have encountered technical difficulties, perhaps a reactor malfunction or navigation error." Veltar said nothing. The emergency beacon's data was quite clear. The Celestial Dominance had been disabled by enemy action. Weapons fire from an unknown source using kinetic projectiles that somehow bypassed Zephyrian shield technology. "Sir," ventured the communications officer, "we're receiving a transmission from the human system. It's addressed to you personally." "Show me." The main screen flickered to life, revealing a human female in what appeared to be a military uniform. She was older than the human they had seen earlier, with gray streaks in her dark hair and lines around her eyes that suggested both intelligence and experience. "Supreme Archon Veltar," she began, speaking directly to the camera with calm confidence. "I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. Your commander and his crew are safe and will be treated well. However, their ship will remain in our custody, as evidence of your unprovoked attack on our sovereign territory." Veltar felt his anger building. No primitive had ever dared speak to him as an equal. "Furthermore," Admiral Chen continued, "we formally demand that the Zephyrian Empire recognize Earth's independence and agree to permanent non-aggression treaties. Any further military action against human space will be considered an act of war." The transmission ended, leaving the High Council chamber in stunned silence. Finally, Admiral Kexhari spoke. "Supreme Archon, we cannot allow this insult to stand. If other species learn that primitives successfully resisted the Empire, I am aware of the implications." Veltar said coldly. "Assemble the 7th Battle Fleet, full strength. These humans need to learn what happens when someone defies the Zephyrian Empire." Within days, Admiral Nexavoran departed Zephys Prime, with 12 dreadnoughts and 30 escort vessels. It was more firepower than had been used in any single operation for over a century. The humans would be reduced to ash, their world turned into a monument to Zephyrian power. But as the fleet traveled toward the human system, strange reports began reaching the capital. Communication disruptions in the outer sectors, supply convoys arriving late or not at all, minor rebellions on worlds that had been pacified for generations. Coincidence, Veltar told himself. But deep down he wondered if the humans had somehow inspired other species to question Zephyrian authority. Admiral Nexavoran was a veteran of 40 years' service, with victories in 3 major campaigns. He had personally commanded the fleet that crushed the Andromedan resistance and had overseen the final pacification of the Helix Nebula colonies. He approached the human system with absolute confidence. That confidence lasted until his fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Admiral, his tactical officer reported, the celestial dominance is detected in orbit around the 3rd planet. Heavy damage, but hull intact. No signs of Commander Nixilon's crew. Any sign of human military vessels? Negative, sir. Long-range sensors detect some small craft moving between the planets, but nothing that registers as a warship. Nexavoran nodded. The humans were probably hiding behind their planet, hoping its bulk would protect them from Zephyrian weapons. It was a futile gesture, but typical of primitive thinking. Take us into the system, he ordered. Full battle formation. We'll reduce their planet to rubble and be home within the week. The fleet began its approach. 12 massive dreadnoughts leading the way with their escort vessels spread in a protective screen. It was an awesome display of military might. Enough firepower to devastate entire star systems. The attack came without warning. Projectiles materialized from empty space, striking the lead vessels with devastating accuracy. Unlike the single ship engagement, this time the humans were firing hundreds of rounds simultaneously, targeting multiple ships at once. Evasive maneuvers. Nexavoran shouted as his flagship shuddered under impact. All ships return fire! But there was nothing to fire at. The human weapons seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, fired from positions that the Zephyrian sensors couldn't detect. Worse, the projectiles were moving even faster than before, striking with enough force to punch completely through the strongest shields. Sir, his engineering officer called out, we're detecting massive energy signatures throughout the system. The humans have installations hidden behind asteroids and planetary rings, even inside the gas giants' moons. They've turned their entire solar system into a fortress. On the tactical display, Nexavoran watched his mighty fleet being torn apart. The Divine Wrath lost main power and began drifting. The Stellar Dominion's weapons arrays exploded in sequence as kinetic rounds found their ammunition storage. The escort vessel Swift Justice simply disappeared in a flash of light as something catastrophic happened to its reactor. How is this possible? He whispered. His science officer provided the answer. Admiral, I'm analyzing the human projectiles. They're not using energy weapons at all. Everything is kinetic, solid metal traveling at relativistic speeds. Our shields were designed to stop plasma and particle beams, not physical impacts at these velocities. But how are they accelerating the projectiles? Where are they getting that much energy? Unknown, sir. The energy requirements should be impossible for a pre-FTL civilization. What the Zephyrians didn't understand was that humanity had approached the problem of space warfare from a completely different angle. While alien civilizations had focused on exotic energy weapons and defensive shields, humans had applied their talent for engineering and their understanding of physics to create weapons that alien defenses simply couldn't handle. Railguns powered by fusion reactors, hidden throughout the solar system and networked together by quantum communication links. Automated defense platforms that could operate independently for months without human oversight. Kinetic bombardment systems that could launch projectiles from the outer system with enough accuracy to hit specific targets around Earth. Most importantly, humans had learned stealth technology that rendered their installations nearly invisible to energy-based sensors. The Zephyrians were fighting an enemy they couldn't see, using weapons they couldn't defend against. Admiral, his communications officer announced, incoming transmission from the humans. The same woman from before appeared on the screen, though this time she was clearly aboard a military vessel. Behind her, Nexavoran could see human crew members working at stations that looked surprisingly advanced for a primitive species. Admiral Nexavoran, she said, apparently knowing his name and rank. You have 2 choices. Withdraw immediately and carry a message back to your empire, or continue fighting and lose your entire fleet. We have no desire to kill your crews, but we will defend ourselves. Nexavoran looked around his bridge. Half his consoles were dark. Emergency lighting flickered overhead, and he could hear damage control teams running through the corridors. In 20 minutes of combat, the humans had crippled his flagship and destroyed or disabled most of his fleet. What message? He asked. Tell your Supreme Archon that the Age of Empires is ending. Tell him that every species you've conquered is watching what happens here. Tell him that if humans can resist the mighty Zephyrian Empire, maybe others can too. As if to emphasize her point, Admiral Chen touched a control on her command chair. On Nexavoran's tactical display, new contacts appeared. Dozens of ships emerging from stealth positions throughout the system. But not all of them were human designs. Those are Andromedan hulls. His tactical officer whispered in amazement. And Helix Nebula configurations. Admiral, some of those ships belong to species we conquered decades ago. Admiral Chen's smile was cold. Did you really think you were the only ones who wanted freedom? The only difference is that humans figured out how to fight back. As the combined fleet of humans and former Zephyrian subjects surrounded his battered forces, Admiral Nexvoran realized that his empire had made a terrible mistake. They hadn't just attacked one primitive world. They had awakened something that had been sleeping in the hearts of every conquered species in the galaxy. Hope. Supreme Archon Veltar received Admiral Nexvoran's report in his private chambers. Away from the eyes of the High Council, the words seemed impossible, but the evidence was undeniable. The humans had not only defeated another Zephyrian fleet, but had somehow assembled a coalition of conquered species to fight alongside them. 12 dreadnoughts, he repeated, staring at the casualty reports. Gone. And you're telling me that species we conquered generations ago are now fighting beside these primitives? Nexavoran's image flickered on the communication screen, the Admiral clearly uncomfortable delivering such devastating news. Yes, Supreme Archon. The Andromedans, the Helix colonies, even the Tau settlers, they've all somehow acquired human weapons technology and are actively rebelling against our occupation forces. How? Veltar demanded. These species have been pacified for decades. They don't even have military forces anymore. Unknown, sir, but the humans seem to have established contact with resistance movements throughout our territory. They're coordinating uprisings, providing weapons, and sharing tactical information. Our local governors are reporting simultaneous rebellions across 17 sectors. Veltar closed the communication channel and walked to his private balcony, looking out over the gleaming towers of Zephys Prime. Below him, millions of Zephyrians went about their daily lives, unaware that their empire was crumbling around them. The truth was worse than even Nexvoran realized. In the 3 days since the fleet's defeat, Veltar had received reports of rebellion from over 40 worlds. Communication relays had been destroyed, cutting off entire sectors from Central Command. Supply ships were being attacked by unknown vessels using human-style kinetic weapons. Most disturbing of all, several colonial governors had simply stopped responding to orders from the capital. He activated his personal communication system and called an emergency meeting of the High Council. If the Empire was to survive, they needed to act quickly and decisively. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the war room aboard the UES Defiance, studying the holographic display that showed the current state of the galaxy. Red dots marked Zephyrian-controlled systems, while green indicated worlds that had successfully rebelled. Yellow showed systems where the outcome was still uncertain. Admiral, reported Captain Rodriguez, we're receiving confirmations from the Vegan Liberation Front. They've successfully captured the orbital weapons platforms around their homeworld. The Zephyrian garrison has surrendered. Chen nodded, marking another system green on the display. The plan was working better than anyone had dared hope. While the Zephyrians focused their attention on Earth, human special forces teams had been infiltrating their territory, making contact with resistance movements and providing them with weapons and training. What's our status on the Centauri operation? She asked. Captain Williams reports that the Alpha Centauri rebels have successfully taken control of their system's communication array. They're now broadcasting liberation messages to nearby systems, encouraging other species to rise up. The strategy was simple, but effective. Humans weren't trying to conquer the Zephyrian Empire. They were teaching it to destroy itself. Every successful rebellion inspired others. Every communication relay captured allowed rebels to coordinate their actions across multiple systems. Every victory proved that the mighty Zephyrians could be defeated. Admiral, called Lieutenant Torres from the intelligence station, we're intercepting increased Zephyrian military communications. It looks like they're recalling forces from the outer territories to defend the core systems. Chen smiled. That was exactly what they wanted. Every ship the Zephyrians pulled back from the frontier weakened their hold on the conquered worlds, making rebellion easier for the local populations. "Any word from our team on Zephys Prime?" she asked. "Radio silence as planned, but our passive sensors are detecting massive troop movements around their capital. It looks like they're preparing for some kind of major operation." Chen studied the tactical display thoughtfully. The Zephyrians still had significant military forces, and if they managed to organize a coherent response, they could potentially crush the rebellion before it gained enough momentum. But humans had one more advantage that the aliens didn't know about. They had been inside the Zephyrian capital for weeks. Commander Sarah Kim crouched in the maintenance tunnel beneath Zephys Prime's central communication complex, checking her equipment one final time. Her team of 12 humans had infiltrated the Zephyrian capital using captured alien technology and carefully forged identification documents. For 3 weeks, they had posed as maintenance workers and technical specialists, moving freely through the Empire's most secure facilities. "Team Alpha, report," she whispered into her comm unit. "In position at the military command center," came the reply. "Ready to proceed on your signal." "Team Beta? Government communication hub secured. We can take control of the planetary broadcast system at any time." "Team Charlie, standing by at the primary data center. Once we're inside, we'll have access to every computer system on the planet." Kim smiled. The Zephyrians had such complete confidence in their security that they had never considered the possibility of sabotage from within. Their systems were designed to prevent external attack, but they had virtually no protection against someone with physical access to their facilities. "All teams, this is it," she broadcast. "Operation Freedom begins in 60 seconds. Remember, we're not here to destroy their infrastructure. We're here to turn it against them." Meanwhile, Supreme Archon Veltar was addressing the emergency session of the High Council, outlining his plan to crush the rebellion before it could spread further. "We will recall every available ship to the core systems," he declared. "Assemble the Grand Fleet. Every dreadnought, every cruiser, every escort vessel in the Empire. Then we will systematically move through the rebellious sectors, destroying any world that refuses to surrender immediately." "Supreme Archon," ventured Counselor Hexmari, "such an action would require us to abandon our frontier territories entirely. The economic disruption alone could—" "The economy means nothing if we lose control of the Empire," Veltar snapped. "These humans have proven that our subject species can be turned against us. We must demonstrate that rebellion leads only to death." Admiral Kexhari nodded agreement. "The Supreme Archon is correct. We have been too lenient with our subjects. A few examples of total planetary destruction will remind the others why they submit to our rule." "Then we are agreed," Veltar said. "Admiral, begin immediate recall of all military forces. I want the Grand Fleet assembled within—" His words were cut off as every screen in the council chamber suddenly flickered and changed. Instead of the official Zephyrian Imperial symbol, they now showed the image of a human woman in military uniform, the same Admiral Chen who had delivered ultimatums to their defeated fleets. "Citizens of the Zephyrian Empire," Admiral Chen began, her words being broadcast simultaneously to every communication device on Zephys Prime and throughout Zephyrian space. "For 3,000 years your government has told you that you are the master race, destined to rule the galaxy. Today you learn the truth." Veltar lunged for the communication controls, but nothing responded. His technicians worked frantically at their stations, but the humans had taken complete control of the planetary communication system. "Your empire is built on lies," Admiral Chen continued. "You are not superior to other species. You are not destined to rule. You are simply another people among many, and your government has committed terrible crimes in your name." On screens throughout the Zephyrian capital, images began appearing. Footage of concentration camps where conquered species were held, records of forced labor operations, documentation of the systematic suppression of alien cultures. Most Zephyrian citizens had never seen evidence of what their empire actually did to maintain control. Even now, as I speak to you, dozens of worlds are throwing off the chains of Zephyrian oppression. The Andromedans have reclaimed their homeworld. The Helix colonies have declared independence. The Tau settlers have formed their own government. Your empire is collapsing because your subjects have learned what you have always known, that tyranny cannot last forever. Veltar watched in horror as his own people began responding to the broadcast. In the streets below, crowds were gathering. watching the massive public screens with expressions of shock and growing anger. Some were shouting questions at Zephyrian security forces, demanding to know if the accusations were true. But this is not a message of conquest, Admiral Chen continued. Humanity does not seek to replace your empire with our own. We seek only freedom, for ourselves and for all the species your government has oppressed. Your leaders have a choice. They can end this peacefully by releasing their subjects and accepting a new galactic order based on equality, rather than domination, or they can fight and lose everything. The broadcast ended, but the damage was done. Throughout Zephyrian space, citizens were questioning their government's actions for the first time in generations. On conquered worlds, the liberation message gave new hope to resistance movements. And in the corridors of power on Zephys Prime, Veltar realized that his empire was facing something it had never encountered before. The truth. The crowds outside the High Council building grew larger each hour. What had begun as confused gatherings of curious citizens had transformed into angry demonstrations demanding answers from their government. For the first time in 3,000 years, ordinary Zephyrians were questioning the foundation of their society. Supreme Archon Veltar watched from his office window as security forces tried to maintain order in the streets below. His own people were chanting slogans they had learned from the human broadcast, calling for an end to the empire and the establishment of a new government based on peace rather than conquest. Sir, Admiral Kexhari entered without waiting for permission, her usually perfect uniform disheveled and her expression grim. We have a problem. The Grand Fleet is assembled, but over 30% of our crews are refusing orders. They're demanding an investigation into the war crimes allegations before they'll participate in any military action. Veltar turned from the window, his face showing the strain of the past few days. What about the remaining ships? Can we proceed with reduced forces? That's the other problem, sir. We're receiving reports that human vessels have been detected in 15 different systems simultaneously. They're not trying to hide anymore. They're openly supporting the rebellions with military force. Our local commanders are reporting that they're heavily outnumbered and requesting immediate reinforcement. How many ships do the humans have? Veltar asked, though he suspected he wouldn't like the answer. Unknown, sir. Our intelligence estimates were clearly wrong. They appear to have been building their fleet in secret for decades, possibly centuries. And they're not just using their own vessels. They've been supplying ships and weapons to every resistance movement in the Empire. Before Veltar could respond, his communication system activated automatically. The same human admiral appeared on his screen, but this time, she was clearly on board a military vessel in space rather than sending a pre-recorded message. Supreme. Archon Veltar, Admiral Chen said. I believe it's time we spoke directly. You have no right to communicate with me, Veltar replied, though his voice lacked its usual authority. You are a primitive who has overstepped her bounds. The Zephyrian Empire will not negotiate with terrorists. Admiral Chen's expression remained calm. Look out your window, Archon. Those are your own people demanding change. Look at your military reports. Those are your own officers refusing to follow orders they consider immoral. Look at your empire. Half your territory is in open rebellion. We didn't cause this collapse, we simply revealed the truth that was already there. Veltar wanted to argue, but the evidence was undeniable. In just 1 week, his mighty empire had begun falling apart from within. The humans had somehow turned the Zephyrians' greatest strength, their absolute control over information, into their greatest weakness. What do you want? He asked finally. The immediate cessation of all military action against rebellious worlds, Admiral Chen replied. The release of all political prisoners and forced laborers, the recognition of independence for any world that chooses to leave the Empire, and the establishment of a new galactic government based on voluntary cooperation rather than conquest. Impossible, Veltar said automatically. The Empire cannot simply dissolve. There would be chaos across the galaxy. There's already chaos, Archon. The difference is that now it's moving toward freedom rather than oppression. As if to emphasize her point, an aide burst into Veltar's office with an urgent message. Sir, we've lost contact with the entire Outer Rim sector. The last transmission indicated that Governor Texavani had surrendered his forces to a coalition of human and rebel ships. Admiral Chen nodded. 17 more systems declared independence this morning. Your Governor Texavani made the wise choice to negotiate rather than fight. His people are safe, his infrastructure is intact, and he's been offered a position in the new provisional government. You're offering positions to our officials? Kexhari asked, clearly surprised. Of course, we need experienced administrators to help with the transition. The goal isn't to punish the Zephyrian people, it's to build a better system for everyone. Your empire had many talented individuals who were simply working within a flawed structure. On the streets below, the crowds had begun singing. The sound drifted up through the building's walls. Not the official imperial anthem, but something new that the humans had apparently taught them through their broadcasts. It was a song about freedom and hope, and it was spreading throughout the city. Sir, another aide announced, urgent message from the Treasury Department. Our financial systems are in complete chaos. With so many worlds no longer sending tribute, we don't have enough resources to maintain basic government services. The Economic Council is requesting emergency funding authorization. Veltar closed his eyes. The Empire's economy had been built on the exploitation of conquered worlds. Without that steady stream of tribute, the entire system was collapsing. Admiral Chen, he said finally, if we were to agree to your terms, what guarantee do we have that Zephyrus Prime and the core worlds would be treated fairly? The same guarantee that every other world will have, she replied. Representation. In the new galactic government, protection under common law and the right to self-determination. Zephyrians will be equal partners in building the future, not rulers imposing their will on others. Admiral Kexhari stepped forward. Supreme Archon, perhaps we should consider. No, Veltar said sharply. I will not be the leader who surrenders 3,000 years of Zephyrian achievement to a species of primitives. Then you won't be the leader much longer, Admiral Chen said quietly. Your own people are losing faith in you. Your military is refusing orders. Your economy is collapsing. You can either be part of the solution, or you can be replaced by someone who will be. As if summoned by her words, the door to Veltar's office opened and Councillor Hexmari entered, followed by 6 other members of the High Council. Supreme Archon, Hexmari said formally, by unanimous vote of the Emergency Council session, you are hereby relieved of command. The Council has voted to accept the human terms and begin immediate negotiations for a peaceful transition. Veltar stared at his former subordinates in shock. You cannot do this. I am the Supreme Archon, chosen by a council that no longer supports your leadership, Hexmari replied. Admiral Kexhari has agreed to serve as interim leader during the transition period. Kexhari stepped forward, her expression sad but determined. Sir, the Empire as we knew it is finished. We can either help build something better, or we can watch everything we care about burn in civil war. I choose to build. Admiral Chen's image on the screen nodded approvingly. Admiral Kexhari, I look forward to working with you. Our first priority should be establishing ceasefire agreements in all active conflict zones, followed by humanitarian aid for worlds that have been damaged in the fighting. Agreed, Kexhari replied. And Admiral, thank you for giving us this chance. Many species would have sought revenge after what we've done to them. Revenge doesn't build a better future, Admiral Chen said. Justice does, and justice means giving everyone, including Zephyrians, the chance to choose their own path. 2 years later, Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of Unity Station, the new headquarters of the Galactic Cooperative. Through the massive windows, she could see ships from dozens of different species docking at the station's many ports. Former enemies now worked side by side, building trade relationships and cultural exchanges that would have been impossible under the old empire. Admiral, Captain Rodriguez approached with the daily reports. The integration of the former Zephyrian military into the cooperative defense force is proceeding ahead of schedule. Admiral Kexhari's leadership has been invaluable in smoothing the transition. Chen nodded. Many former Zephyrian officers had adapted well to their new role as protectors rather than conquerors. Kexhari herself had become one of humanity's closest allies, working tirelessly to ensure that the mistakes of the Empire were never repeated. Any new applications for membership? Chen asked. 3 this week. The Spiral Arm Federation, the Crystal Coalition, and something called the Free Traders Alliance. Word is spreading that the cooperative offers protection without domination. Chen smiled. The galaxy was still healing from 3,000 years of imperial rule, but the progress was undeniable. Trade flowed freely between systems that had once been forbidden to communicate. Scientific research was shared openly rather than hoarded for military advantage. Most importantly, no single species held power over any other. Admiral, Rodriguez continued, there's one more thing. The Exploration Committee has approved the deep space mission to the Andromeda Galaxy. They want to know if you'd be interested in commanding the expedition. Chen considered the offer. After years of war and reconstruction, the idea of peaceful exploration held great appeal. Humanity had proven they could fight when necessary, but their true strength lay in their ability to inspire others and build bridges between different peoples. Tell them yes, she said. It's time to see what's out there beyond our own galaxy. And this time we'll go as explorers and friends, not conquerors.